3 students, 3 field trips, 3 things that were never supposed to be there. These are true stories sent in by viewers like you, and story 2 is the reason I now count heads before and after every trip. Stay until the end, because story 3 still doesn't have an explanation. When I was a sophomore, my school's drama club took an overnight trip to Pine Hollow Lodge, a ski resort in upstate New York that mostly sat empty in the off-season. It was late October, freezing, and the lodge felt like it was built for 100 more people than were actually staying there. I was rooming with my best friend Carter. We had a ground floor room with sliding glass doors that looked out over a frozen lake. 4 chaperones were technically in charge of 40 of us, which, if you've ever been on a school trip, you know means nobody is really in charge of anything. The first night was great. We did the ropes course, ate too much at the dining hall, and got back to the room around 10. We left the blinds open because the moonlight on the ice outside looked unreal. We were lying there talking when Carter suddenly went quiet mid-sentence. I asked what was wrong. He didn't answer. He was staring past me, at the glass door behind my bed. I turned around. There was a woman standing on the other side of the glass, not moving, not knocking, just standing there with her palms flat against the door, looking in at us like she was reading a book through a window. We both bolted up, and she turned and walked off into the dark, fast, but not running. By the time we got the courage to open the door, the porch was empty. No footprints in the frost. No sound of anyone walking away. We told 2 girls from our group the next morning, but none of the chaperones, because honestly, what were we supposed to say? That night, we shut the blinds and locked both doors before bed. I fell asleep around midnight. I woke up to Carter shaking my shoulder, his hand freezing cold, his voice barely a whisper. The door's open. The sliding door, the one we'd locked, was open about a foot. The cold night air was pouring into the room. Carter said he woke up because he heard it slide. Neither of us went back to sleep. At breakfast, a different chaperone mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that an elderly woman staying in the East Wing had wandered off from her room a few times overnight, and that lodge security was looking for her. We never saw her again. But every year, when the leaves start turning, I think about how she never said a single word, and how she somehow got a locked door open without leaving a single mark on the frost outside. I was 8 years old on a field trip to a small countryside animal sanctuary about 40 minutes from my school. It was the kind of place with goats you could feed, a rabbit enclosure, and one big barn at the back that the staff used for storage. I've always been the kid who wandered off. My teachers used to joke I had a built-in homing beacon for trouble. While the class was doing a guided tour of the rabbit pens, I slipped away to look at the goats one more time. Nobody noticed. I was gone maybe 2 minutes before a man I didn't recognize crouched down next to me by the fence. He wasn't a sanctuary worker, no vest, no badge, nothing. He asked if I wanted to see the baby goats in the barn, the ones that weren't out for visitors yet. 8-year-old me thought that sounded amazing. He took my hand and started walking me toward the barn, away from the group, toward a tree line at the edge of the property. I remember his grip getting tighter the closer we got to the trees. I remember a feeling in my stomach I didn't have words for yet, just a sense that something was wrong, even though nothing had technically happened. Then a teacher's aide rounded the corner of the barn looking for stragglers and screamed my name at the top of her lungs. The man let go instantly and walked, not ran, walked, like he wanted to look casual, into the tree line and disappeared. The trip ended immediately. Police were called. As our bus pulled out of the gravel lot, I looked out the window and saw him again, crouched at the edge of the woods near the road, watching the buses leave. I didn't tell anyone what I saw. I was too scared to say anything for the rest of the ride home. He was never identified. To this day, I wonder how many times he'd done that before, and how many kids never had a teacher's aide round that corner at the right second. In 11th grade, one took an elective called Local History and Legends, basically an excuse to study creepy small-town folklore for credit. For our big field trip, the teacher took us to the ruins of Hollow Creek, a settlement that had been abandoned sometime in the early 1900s and never resettled. Officially, nobody knew exactly why everyone left. The bus dropped us at a gravel turnoff because the road was too overgrown to drive further. We walked the last quarter mile through grass that came up past our knees. The buildings were exactly what you'd picture. Leaning brick walls, boarded windows, doorways that had collapsed into black rectangles of nothing. My friend Marcus and I split off from the group while the teacher led everyone toward the old chapel. We found a gap in the foundation of the tallest building, what used to be some kind of mill, with a rusted ladder leading down into a basement level. We climbed down because, at 16, that's just what you do. It was dead silent down there except for our footsteps. We found an old wooden staircase leading up into the floor above, completely dark since every window upstairs had been boarded from the outside. We were about to turn back when we heard something, a heavy, deliberate thud, like something dropped on concrete, coming from a side room we hadn't checked yet. We should have run. Instead, we crept toward the doorway and shined our phone flashlights in. 3 figures were standing in the room, maybe 10 feet from the doorway, perfectly still, facing us, like they'd been waiting for the light to find them. We didn't scream. We didn't think. We just ran up the ladder, back into the daylight, straight to the group, completely out of breath. We told one classmate what happened, but never the teacher, afraid of getting in trouble for splitting off. As we left the site, I glanced back at the mill one last time. There was a face in one of the only windows that wasn't boarded over, 3 stories up, in a building with no working staircase to reach it. We've never gone back. Marcus says they were squatters. I'm not so sure squatters stand that still. Did something creepy ever happen to you on a school trip? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your story could be featured in the next episode of Forgotten Cases.